Hello, and welcome to the first lecture in the 2023 Legends of Simpson Lecture Series. Today, it's my pleasure to have true Simpson legend Jonh Sirianni with us as he discusses the value of extracurricular activities. Please help me welcome Simpson legend Jonh Sirianni.
Thank you, Andy. Today I'm going to talk about three aspects of extracurricular activities and how those activities have been a very important part of Simpson's history. First, I want to talk about the skills and personal benefits that come from participating in extracurricular activities. Now, I spent most of my career dealing with athletics. However, other extracurricular activities such as band, drama, debate, and so on and so forth actually create the same experiences, skills, and benefits. And so I think they're all equally important. Second, I'm going to talk a little bit about how these skills can be instrumental in helping students navigate many of the challenges that they face in today's life. Third, I'm going to talk about how Simpson's comprehensive educational philosophy has addressed these issues. I would like to start by discussing some of the skills and experiences that extracurricular activities can provide for students and how these skills carry over to life after college. I'm going to just name a few. First, time management. I think if you talk to most people who are involved in extracurricular activities, they'll say they do better academically during their in-season time rather than their out-season time because they have to plan their work and then work their plan. Also, as you get into the business world or professional life, being able to handle your time, schedule your work, and then follow through is a key ingredient to being successful. Teamwork. Work collectively for a goal, being a part of something greater than yourself. You know, in extracurricular activities, you're involved with many people. And their success, your success, their failure, your failure, are all grouped together. And the ability to work in a team setting is something that is extremely important and is learned definitely in extracurricular activities. Loyalty. Loyalty is a big deal to me. And I think being loyal to your teammates, to your leader, to your school, to your, to your program is a very important part of being successful. And again, I think this carries over to the business world. Leadership. Throughout your time involved in extracurricular activities, you're put into leadership positions, whether it be a quiet leader, a rah-rah type leader, a leader by example, whatever. Leadership is a key factor in being successful in extracurricular activities. And I think it helps you in extracurricular activities to learn that skill. Delayed gratification. I think this is something that in today's society is extremely important. In a world where what I want right now, delayed gratification is something that if you're going to be successful over a long period of time, this is something you have to learn to live with. All of the work that you do behind the scenes, your individual practices, your team practices, when the lights aren't on, when no one's watching, is extremely important to be able to perform when it's game time or when it's time for a performance. The ability to compete under pressure. Again, when you're involved with extracurricular activities of any sort, to compete or to perform in front of your parents, in front of your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your friends, and so on and so forth, can be a little bit daunting. But I think being involved in extracurricular activities help you to learn how to do that and to become comfortable doing that. Dealing with failure. Everybody fails at some point throughout their life. Just two quick examples. Abraham Lincoln. I don't think he won an election until he became president, but he kept coming back and doing it again and again and again. Kurt Warner, NFL Hall of Fame quarterback. He started out on the Barnstormers. He got cut by several schools, and I think that the ability to pick yourself up, get back to work, commit to what you're doing is something that's extremely important as you go through life. Dealing with adversity. I think in a lot of situations, people parents, and so on, try to help students not deal with adversity. And I think that's a mistake because we all face different forms of adversity. So the ability to go through adversity, to deal with it, and to come out the other end in a positive fashion is very important. Dealing with success, you know, people talk about what is that? Well, first, it's a lot harder to stay on top than it is to get to the top. So the ability to understand that you have to go through the process again and again, the ability to refocus and know that last year was last year and this is a new year is extremely important. Also, I think just from a personal standpoint, you know people who are good winners and you know people who are bad winners. I think humility is extremely important as a personal trait for all of us. And the ability to be humble in a successful situation is a great personal trait. Accountability, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a little bit, but being accountable, not just to yourself and your teammates, but also the leader, the coach, the boss, whatever. Learning to understand that process of dealing with being accountable is something that truly does carry over to your business life, your professional life, or whatever. Like I said, the ability to get along with a boss. I can tell you, I've heard different people say, well, I'm not going to play because I don't like the coach, or I don't like the leader, or I don't like, well, let me tell you, as you go through your life, you're going to deal with bosses or, you know, people who are over you in the flow chart that you don't necessarily agree with or you don't necessarily like. But who are you hurting when you say, I'm not going to play because of the coach? You're hurting yourself. You're eliminating an experience that could be very beneficial to you. So the ability to deal with good leaders and bad leaders is in preparation for life after college. Communication skills. I don't know of any business situation where you don't have to have excellent communication skills. And in extracurricular activities, you get to practice that. You get to practice communication with your teammates, with supporters, with your coach, and so on and so forth. So communication is very important. And one of my former players wanted me to mention, learn to have fun. As you go through the process, it takes to be successful and to get to competition. It's a long process. It's days of practice, days of preparing, and so on and so forth. You need to be able to have fun with your teammates and with your coaches throughout that process. And I think that makes it a lot easier to be successful. Small college activities do an excellent job in developing these skills. When I started my master's degree at Iowa State University, I had a discussion with the head of the physical education department. We were talking about the values and the experiences that you gain in athletics. I had indicated to her that I was going to go into athletic administration. She said, kind of curtly, all coaches talk about these values and skills, but they're only really concerned about winning. Her comment has obviously stuck with me for over 45 years. As a former Division I athlete myself, and someone who has two sons who were Division I athletes and who are now Division I coaches, and a son-in-law who is a Division I athletic administrator, I believe there is some actual truth to her assessment in Division I athletics. Even though, and I firmly believe this, that there are many Division I coaches, administrators, and I sincerely hope the three that I just mentioned are part of them, who truly do believe in the intrinsic qualities and values learned in athletics, and as well as other extracurricular activities. However, the overwhelming pressure to win, the huge salaries, the amount of money generated by big-time athletics, the fan base, and especially the donor base expectations make it really hard to put developing these personal qualities over winning. To emphasize that, if you go back to this fall, Division I football coaches, there were a number of those people who were fired before the season was even half over. That kind of pressure is at times difficult to deal with. Along with those pressures, you add two NCAA initiatives, the transfer portal and NIL, name, image, and likeness money. And the result is, and I've heard several Division I coaches talk about it, and they say, now you have the wild, wild west. The transfer portal, and there are many situations that the transfer portal is a positive for both the student athlete and the university. There's times where it's just not a good fit. Either the student athlete's not going to play or play very little, or maybe their academic interests have changed and they need a new start in that regard. But when programs and coaches start poaching the programs with the best reputation and the most financial support have a tremendous advantage. I don't want to really point fingers at anybody, but just an example of that. There was a team that made the Division I College World Series last spring that had 8 of their main players. They got through the transfer portal, all from quality programs where they had been extremely successful. To look at how extensive this has become, from early December this past year to today, over 3,000 Division I student athletes have entered the transfer portal. And there's only approximately 130 Division I football programs. You can do the math to see how extensive that is. Name, image, and likeness. Again, I strongly believe that student athletes who help generate millions of dollars for their institution deserve to be compensated. But again, the schools with the best financial support have a distinct advantage. One of my sons has offered a few kids baseball scholarships, and they turned them down saying, I'm going to go to school XYZ. I'm not going to get a baseball scholarship, but the NIL package that I'm going to get is much greater than any baseball scholarship you could give me. Also, if you listen to Deion Sanders, who knows a little bit about financial support at the college level, that he's very concerned about coaching staffs who really aren't prepared to deal with 18, 19, 20-year-old kids that come into a lot of money. They're going to make more than many of the coaches, and the ability to handle that kind of financial influx is very difficult. An example of that is Florida just had to release a quarterback that they had signed for this year because they had put together a $13 million NIL package for his 4 years at Florida, and it fell apart. So he got released from his scholarship. I think the system, the way it is, tends to push coaches and athletes to be more concerned about themselves than the team or the program. Now, don't get me wrong, I believe winning and being successful is a very important part of these activities. However, at the small college level, most coaches and directors are concerned about the whole student, not just what they can do on the field, on the court, or on the stage. I'd like to be, again, clear that there are many coaches at the higher levels who believe in this and practice it, developing the overall total education. I know several of them, and I've worked with several of them, and several of them are my friends. However, I believe that in those settings, it's much more difficult. Therefore, the education received in a small college culture and setting is by far positioned better to provide a total educational experience. In my opinion, the skills learned in extracurricular activities are more important today than they have ever been in the past. Today's youth are faced with so many more difficulties and issues than ever before. Some of those difficulties are examples. COVID. For the past 2+ years, students have been under the COVID restrictions, the isolation, not being able to be with your friends, taking classes online, and so on and so forth. 18, 19, 20-year-old people are social beings, and to be isolated in that situation has made it very tough. I think social media has created some issues. I think there are a lot of good things about social media and so on and so forth. But I also think that it brings out some really negative behavior. Oftentimes when a student athlete performs or performs poorly, he or she will receive a great deal of negative comments through the social media platforms. I think in many parts of today's society, truth, right and wrong, is defined by the individual, which creates a situation where you have a bunch of people going in many different directions. And in extracurricular activities, there has to be a core system or belief to be successful. I think many societal questions and conflicts related to self-worth, sexuality, core beliefs, faith, and politics are much more prevalent today than they've been in the past. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the personal isolation or the lack of social support is a really, in my opinion, a pretty big problem for students as they go away to school. Add these escalating pressures to the traditional stressors, like when students go away to school for the first time away from home. In many situations, that's tough. It's tough on the student, it's tough on the parents, and that whole situation of the first time being away is stressful. Financial pressures, whether it's today or 25 years ago, families have financial pressures. How are they going to make enough money or devote enough money for a student to go to college? Family issues, whether it's problems with parents, problems with siblings, whatever, those problems are still there. Academic pressures. Students feel, and rightly so, that they have to meet a certain expectation academically to maintain their academic scholarships, to prepare themselves to qualify to go to graduate school or medical school or whatever. And I think one of the things that a lot of people truly don't realize is in many situations, students go away to school and they don't know anybody or know very few people. So the process of developing new friends, find people who have similar beliefs, similar philosophies, similar interests, can be difficult. The fact is, our students today are much more stressed compared to their counterparts of years past. To confirm this, just go to any college counseling office and look at the increasing numbers of students seeking help for these problems. So how can extracurricular activities be important for today's students? First, I believe that successful societal organizations are built on two basic principles: faith and family. When I talk about faith, just as Simpson was founded on Christian fundamentals, there must be a belief in a supreme being, in God, and in turn, that leads to the development of guidelines, principles, right and wrong, to live by. The ability to live by guidelines prepares one for life after college, whether it be in your professional life or your personal life. Extracurricular activities successfully function on the basis that there are rules and regulations. All the members of the team are required to live by these guidelines. Everyone, including the leader, is responsible for their actions and behavior, and there are consequences that go with their behavior. Hopefully, these programs in small college situations foster the ability and the belief that to be successful in life, one must live and thrive in this type of structure. I believe that the nuclear family is a person's foundation, support, and guiding light. I also believe that a team or organization can function as an extended family. I can't tell you the number of times I heard from parents in all of our programs that the coach or director was like a second father or a second mother when their child was away from home, and how good that made them feel to know that there was someone watching over their child. Also, the bonding between the members of the team become a major influence and support system through all the aspects of their life. Many of these relationships last a lifetime. I would like to share with you just a couple examples of how Simpson athletic programs function as an extended family. I was talking to a graduating senior on the women's basketball team a few years ago, and she said to me, "Coach Nemeth loves us and we love him." That's the basis of family. Not long ago, Coach Jim Williams passed away, and at the wake, over 100 former players waited for Mrs. Williams and the family to arrive at the church to express their condolences and their love for Coach Williams. The impression that that left with Jim's family will last forever. And I could give you many, many more similar examples that at Simpson, these teams and programs are truly extended families. This culture truly enhances many of the skills and behavior that make extracurricular activities such a positive part of a student's college experience. Again, things like being part of something greater than yourself, learning to work with others, teamwork, the ability to work with a coach or director, learning to live with failure and success, the ability to overcome adversity, just to name a few, and so on. Now, let's take those skills and move them into life after college. According to several studies and comments from business leaders, these skills, such as being a team player, the ability to communicate well, students that can take initiative to lead, students with self-discipline, students that are coachable, and who have the potential to be leaders, are key factors in being successful in any business situation. So as future employers, they're looking for students who have experienced those skills and actually excelled in those skills. An interesting fact that I ran across at an Ernst & Young study said that 90% of female executives played sports, and those holding C-suite offices, 96% played sports. Now, I would assume that includes high school sports as well as college sports, but I think it's indicative of the importance of learning the skills that are there in extracurricular activities. To summarize how extracurricular activities can help today's students with many of their struggles, I believe so strongly that being a part of an organization brings students out of an isolation mentality or isolation situation. Being involved forces students to spend endless hours with teammates and classmates, learning to get along and thrive with and around many different types of people. The reinforcement and friendship that is developed through these experiences truly helps students first feel good about themselves and feel comfortable in their own skin. When you laugh, when you cry, when you sweat, when you're afraid together, and ultimately when you feel gratitude and satisfaction for doing your best and succeeding, it creates a lasting bond, and maybe even more importantly, reinforces who you are and what you can accomplish as being a quality contributor to your personal family and to society in general. In my opinion, Simpson has always had a fundamental philosophy of providing its students with a great total education. When President Bob McBride hired me, he made it crystal clear that he wanted an athletic department that attracted quality young men and women, young people of high character, who were excellent students and who were outstanding athletes. This philosophy was carried on through the leadership of presidents like Steve Jennings, John Bird, Bruce Haddix, who was an interim president, but also longtime academic dean. They all supported this philosophy. This frankly became a fundamental recruiting principle for the athletic department and also the whole school, a standard that John Kellogg, vice president for enrollment, totally embodied. And by the way, I owe John a great deal of gratitude because he pretty much helped me get to Simpson. And this philosophy was also supported by Jim Torrey as Dean of Students. He supported this and encouraged this through the student body. I also believe that this philosophy was strongly supported by President Kelleher. And I am very hopeful that Simpson's next president will also embrace this philosophy. Over the past several decades, with few exceptions, Simpson has lived by this philosophy, with between 50 and 60% of recent recruiting classes planning to participate in athletics, and many, many more who plan to be involved with music, drama, debate, and other organizations. It's clear that Simpson wants to be a college that offers a great total education. And that education must start with an excellent academic experience. To see this, just look at some of the latest best colleges and university rankings. Then you add to that some very successful extracurricular activities. Let's start with the Simpson Music program. It's been nationally known and recognized for its excellence over many years, a tradition that was started by Robert Larson. Also, let's add the national championships from our debate team under the direction of Spencer Wall. And that's just to name a few. And there's many other extracurricular activities that have been extremely successful. Now turn to athletics. If you haven't been to a Hall of Fame banquet lately, you should go. To listen to the incredible athletic accomplishments for the Hall of Fame inductees, as well as their athletic accomplishments, the successes and contributions that they have made to society are remarkable. Now move to the tremendous successes and impact that Double S Award winners have made on their local communities, regionally, and in many cases, nationally. Then, probably most importantly, listen to their acceptance speeches. When almost to a person, they express their extreme gratitude to Simpson College, the longtime friends they have made, and to the professors and coaches who were so impactful in their lives. So, in conclusion, I believe that Simpson is a special place, and our extracurricular activities remain a hallmark of that success, a place where students can develop and mature under the guidance and leadership of faculty and staff members who truly care about them as individuals.
Well, thank you very much, John. And Simpson can be impactful. You stay right there. We'll answer all these questions. So it's Simpson's impactful because of people like you that have given so much to the college. So thank you for that. And now we will switch over to answering any questions that you might have for John. And you can pose those through the question and answer function, and we'll go through the ones that have already been proposed here. So the first one states, as I listen, I think what you say of extracurricular is so true of curricular. And I don't believe this is to be confusion. Why do we value the activities of the extracurricular as extracurricular when these amount to being as valuable as the curricular? They're both curricular. What are your thoughts on that?
I couldn't agree more. I think that when you look at an academic experience through the curricular experiences that you receive, as well as the extracurricular, the skills that you learn, the benefits that you gain come together to truly make the situation a great total education. And you really can't do one without the other to gain all of those positive things. That's a great question.
Can you tell us some of the most critical steps in building the most successful era in Simpson athletics?
Well, I guess I'd start with the teamwork. I mentioned several of the presidents and other cabinet level administrators. I think in order to be successful, having a successful athletic program, any extracurricular activity, as well as the academic situation, all of the people at the upper levels have to be going in the same direction. and believe in the same principles. I was extremely fortunate that along with those people, I was able to hire and then work with, I think, 10 current coaches, Hall of Fame members at Simpson. And there's some more that are still coaching that I'm sure will be in the Hall of Fame. So to be able to work with people like that who are all working in the same direction is extremely important. When Bob McBride hired me, he asked me, what do we need? What do we need to be successful? And I put it in 5 basic categories. The first one was quality coaching, both head and assistants. The time committed, the number of full-time, number of part-time, and so on and so forth. You have to have quality leadership. You have to have people who are recognized throughout your recruiting area as people that are successful and that they want their students or their players to be a part of their program. The second thing is you have to have a recruiting program and a financial aid program that allows you to attract the quality students. I think the recruiting process, the system of the visit, the coordination between the academic counselors in the admissions office, faculty members, and coaches is extremely important to collectively recruit quality kids. I think facilities are important now. I think you don't have to have the very best, in my opinion. You just have to have facilities that meet 2 characteristics. Number one, they have to be good enough that that part of the recruiting equation is taken out. You don't want people say, I'm going to school X, Y, or Z because their facilities are significantly better than yours. The second thing, as far as the facilities are concerned, you need to have facilities that allow your student athletes to reach their full potential, both physically and as a team in practice facilities and so on and so forth. The fourth thing would be budgets. Unfortunately, it costs a lot of money to run programs. And in today's situation, you have to have the finances in order to provide students with the kind of travel, the kind of equipment, the kind of schedule that is exciting, that's fun, and that's comparable to your competition. And finally, and I think this factor is very important, your public relations program through your sports information office and the public relations office has to be promoting who you are and your vision for who you are in the future. That part of the program has to almost be in front of what's actually happening on the ground. People need to tell your story in a very, very positive way, because in today's society, in order for you to get a kid to come to campus, they've already gone through all the stealth shopping necessary to see whether they like the school, they like the facilities, they like the academics, and so on and so forth. So I think the PR program is something that's extremely important. Now, in all of these situations, in all 5 of them, I think it should be in relationship to your competition. The people that you compete against, as well as the people that you aspire to be like. So.
Sounds great. The next question comes from Charlie Schilling, and he says, great job, coach. Can you tell everyone who hit more home runs, Tony or Charlie? And he says, just kidding, but I don't think he's just kidding.
I don't think he's just kidding either.
And then he does follow up with the question of, can you share some of your philosophies about the processes that you taught the baseball teams and that get better or worse each day? Those are some of those examples.
Thanks, Charlie. You or Tony, I think it was a tie at 0. No, I know, Charlie, you hit a monster in the Metrodome, and I know that Tony hit several. I can't tell you who hit the most. My philosophy that I tried to instill in our student athletes. Um, One of the first things that I try to do, and obviously you don't succeed in it all the time, is to try to teach people to be, or to teach student athletes to be good people, to be concerned about your teammate, to be concerned about your classmates, um, to live by a set of guidelines, to live by a set of principles that you strongly believe in. I think that was one of the things that I tried to instill, and tried to lead an example as far as that's concerned. The thing that you mentioned, Charlie, I think is really important. Every day when you go to practice, every day when you go to a class, every day when you go to a study session, in my opinion, you either get better or you get worse. So as you attend those different activities, I think you have to be focused, um, and dialed in to make sure that you know what you want to accomplish that day, and then follow the process. I also believe, and I think I tried to instill this as well, is that life is a process. Competing in extracurricular activities is a process. Um, Getting good grades is a process. As I mentioned during my talk, I think the time that's spent when no one's watching, the time that's spent in practice, the mental preparation are all things that go into a person being successful in whatever their endeavor is. And if extracurricular activities can help build that ability, I think that's really important. But I think learning to deal with the process is very important. And I think finally, I think we attempted, to learn how to compete, to learn to compete to the best of your ability, to learn to compete under pressure, to learn to compete against all odds, but to stay focused throughout the competition in a way that allowed you to perform to the best of your ability.
And it looks like we have time for this one final question, and it is or sorry, internships are almost commonplace for students in today's world. You have advice for student athletes for balancing these demands?
Well, I think you're right, Paula. Internships are essential. They're absolutely essential. Um, Life after college. So how do you balance those things? And again, I think at small college level, it's much easier because you do have in season, you do have out of season, and you have the summer that you can get involved with internships. I think it goes back to time management. I think it goes back to the situation of knowing what you want, knowing what you need to do to get there. But I couldn't agree with you more that internships are essential, and the ability to balance those with your academics, um, with your extracurricular activities. And finally, you need to have a little fun too. But that's a great question.
Right. Well, thank you, John, for being here today. And you are a true legend of Simpson, and you definitely earned that title. Thank you all for being here today, and hopefully you'll tune in for future lectures in the lecture series. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.